Welcome to VolleyTalk alongside Mirsanas, and I'm Elliot Scully. Joining us today, the head coach of the Hilliard Davidson Wildcats and founder of the Momentum Volleyball Club, Craig Lantz. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm excited to be here. You guys have really helped grow the game. And I just can't wait to have a great conversation.
Awesome, appreciate that. Well, you've had a long history of both playing through, high school and college and coaching volleyball. Can you kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, it's a long one. I don't know how much time you guys have, but
Ah,
guys, I started out in middle school. My first year was back in 2006 or 2005 as a seventh grader. No one in my family played volleyball. I just picked it up as a whim. And that year, we actually had boys volleyball at Weaver. That was the inaugural season. So that was really cool. Wasn't good. Very, very bad at volleyball. I was a B team bencher. And then I enjoyed it. Eighth grade, I played. And funny enough, my middle school didn't have boys volleyball. I went to Hilliard Weaver to play, but I actually went to Hilliard Memorial as a student. So, um, caught what everyone knows as the volleyball bug. And I kept playing. Freshman year, played at Davidson. Sophomore year, JV All-Star, 15-5 again, won the JV tournament. So that was pretty epic for our program. And then junior year, kind of sat the bench a little bit as a DS on varsity. And then senior year, it was a big transition. That junior year, I played club on Vanguard's 17's national team, and that was a good opportunity to grow my game and really just ran with it. Senior year, uh, started libero for the first time, and we pushed real hard. We went 21-7. I was all-state libero. It was me and AJ Eckhoff and Moeller that were the two all-state liberos, and
nice.
um, then I got super addicted. I finally got that big stream of confidence. Went and played volleyball at Adrian College. Started their inaugural program. Um, they were club, but we were funded as varsity, which was cool. They kept telling us we were going to be. Uh, Varsity, but it never happened. It happened my freshman year, or technically my super freshman year when I went to Quincy. But then I was an All-American my senior year at Adrian College, and I didn't want to go into optometry school like I was planning on doing. So I went to Quincy University and used my last year eligibility to play D1 there. And then it kind of went full circle where I ran out of eligibility, was at home, finishing up my master's, and the Weaver position opened up. And I was like, I took over the program there, coached there for 6 years. And then the job opened up at Davidson, and I was like, it's now or never.
Yeah.
So I kind of just jumped face first into it, which is way different than middle school, I'll tell you that. And now we're in year three. Last summer, me and Robert Bowling were talking, and we were like, dude, we're already in the game. I kind of heard a quote that inspired me in life. You're either on the sidelines or in the game. And as a high school coach, I wasn't coaching club at the time. And I was like, well, I'm seeing all these boys, and some of my boys were having great experiences, and some could have had better ones. And every club has their own ups and downs, and I think that they all, regardless, provide something good for boys volleyball. But Rob and I were like, hey, let's just jump face first into this. And luckily, we were super blessed. We had 5 teams with like 50 boys. So first season went really well.
That's amazing. Now, you talked about some of the different programs you've been involved with Weaver and Adrian College, essentially being one of those inaugural teams in ways. There's a lot of history at Hilliard Davidson as well, being one of the very first schools to field a boys volleyball team in Ohio. You've got some connections that were around close to the start of this sport in Ohio. Walk me through that period. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we started, I think 1989 was our inaugural season. And then they won a state championship in 1991. Larry Worth was on there, Sean Parcell, Jay Cawley. Larry Worth and Sean started Vanguard, I think back in '07. I know I watched the interview with you and Brian Webb. So yeah, I think in '09, that was the third season that Vanguard was kind of established. And I literally just got lucky, Mahir. I just was born at the right time in the right year. And then being under Jay's wing was incredible. I mean, he was coach of the year my senior year, so I got to learn a lot. And luckily, he's the assistant athletic director at Davidson, so I've gotten to really lean on him if I have any questions, from an admin. position because a lot of people like I love to coach, but as a varsity coach, you're doing a ton of admin work. I mean, last year in my program, I had 10 coaches from seventh grade all the way up to my varsity team. So, and this year I got, I think, seven as well. Or we have one, two, I have freshman, JV, varsity assistant, and then a volunteer. So I got eight total. And we had to fight for it. It was funny. I was talking to Tina from Bradley, and I was like, "Hey, do you have a varsity assistant?" She's like, "No." And I texted Evan Bell, and I was like, "Hey, do you have one?" He's like, "Yeah, we've had one for years." And then I talked to my ADs last year, and they're like, "Oh, you get one." So, it's just asking questions. It's literally just saying, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, or I want to learn."
That's awesome. Now, take a look at your high school team. Kind of had, a tough start to the year. You lost your best outside Ryan Monahan to some illness early on. You took loss to Olentangy Berlin, and then it was kind of a rough day with the quad with Pick North, St. Ed's, and Jackson. How did you kind of fight to keep your team motivated through that stretch when you know there's more there?
It's just explaining the big picture. I mean, my coaches, Denitsa and Coach Nick for the varsity guys and Spence and Jess are just incredible. So they really helped. It was hard, not only on the varsity guys, but the JVB, JVA guys who look up to Ryan and to some of those other guys. But we kind of just handled it the way we coach. We coach long term. We don't go for short term wins. We go for long-term wins. So with Ryan being out and it was tough, but I have to give credit to Olentangy Berlin. Jim runs a great program. They have been firing on all cylinders, more or less. They've had a few hiccups, but the St. Ed's, it's just life. I tell the boys sometimes you're ready to go and you have everything planned, and then life says, "Hey, this isn't the hand that you're dealt right now." So yeah, we went to St. Ed's. Of course, Ryan wasn't there, and then our two other outsides weren't there. So we had some JV guys pull up, and realistically, it's made us a lot more well-rounded as a team. It's forced guys to step up. It's not about what happened to you in the past. It's about what can happen in the future, and you can control that. So we've just really focused on, hey, stay positive. Things are going to go bad, but things are going to go well. So just be ready for it to go right.
For sure. Now, your season, or rather, after a long season without Monahan, you were able to get him back for that tri-match against St. X and then Thomas Worthington, two of the top teams in the state this year. Although you took a couple of losses, what are some of those takeaways from that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Brian. I mean, he had us, and I think our record, it is what it is. I mean, we've earned those losses and we've earned those wins. And that try really showed us what we need to be. And we didn't play great against Thomas, and Thomas is a great team. I'm so impressed. They played on all cylinders and we played empty. But I was super proud of our boys because after, I think it was the third set, we were down like 16-6. And then I think we brought it back to 16-20. So I, it was challenging, but after that loss to Thomas, I told the boys the good news is we can't play any worse, and we're about to play a great team. And St. X is awesome. It was awesome to play against Bill's group, and we stuck with them. You look at the scores, and that third set was crazy. We had it at 24s, and Ryan Monahan goes back and serves Joe Taggart, and Joe Taggart jumps up and he basically gets ace, but he hits it back. And my middle just watches it go over the net, and bam, they get the 25th point and finish it out because they're a great team. And I told the boys, I said, when you're going up against a great team with great players, you have to be expecting the ball every millisecond, or silly things like that are going to happen. But we lost 26-24, and I thought it was a good rebound. It was a good injection of some confidence for us. And I think it's really helped us kind of do a 180 for our season.
Now you mentioned it, but your season kind of culminated with the sweep of Arlington at their house. You secured a piece of the OCC title, and I mean, with some of the tough losses you had early on to be able to get that back. I mean, how special was that to kind of share in that moment?
It was really special. I mean, the thing that maybe a lot of Ohio didn't see was before that. And I was really proud of my boys because we had a lot of sophomores. The juniors that I have are either third year or fourth year players that just started playing club last year. but we went all the way undefeated into conference without some of our top guys. So our conference championship was a team win, from bottom to top. But our senior night, I tried to get some other guys in, and everyone thought that Liberty was going to have a down year, and Dave has done a sweet job with this team. They are a lot better. I mean, if you saw the OCC challenge, they lost a nail biter to Jerome. Um, but no, we were down in our fifth set against Olentangy Liberty on senior night. We were down 13-6, and we came back and won 16-14.
Wow.
So uh, I know the UA game was great, but there were so many emotions going through my head. I put a lot of the guilt on me in that set, but I told him like it's the boys. I always say this to him, but it's not where you start; it's where you finish, and you got to believe. I tell him that, and this isn't my quote, but having faith costs nothing, but means everything. So I think that they've really bought into it.
That's amazing. Now, Hilliard Davidson has been the host for one of the longest running JV tournaments in the state. In your time so far, how much does it mean for the JV players to have that sort of postseason experience, and what makes having it at Davidson special?
Yeah, so great question here. So to correct you, we have the oldest tournament. It's not one, it's the oldest tournament in the state of Ohio. 36 years was this year, but it means everything. I think you guys do an excellent job of covering boys volleyball. But it's always grassroots. It always starts with the seventh graders and then feeds up in those ninth and 10th and 11th graders who make JVB or JVA. They're striving to be on varsity. And it's very rare for them to get a very competitive environment to express that and test it. It's a great opportunity for their coaches to see who's going to stand up and who's going to sit down. Uh, so there's nothing more important than it. Actually, in fact, when I took over the program, Rusty Herring, who was the coach prior to me, he said, "Hey, I don't know if you're going to be able to run the JV tournament." And to his testament, because I'd never run a tournament like that. And I said, "You're you're probably right, but I'm going to try it anyhow. I'm going to try it anyhow, and I don't want to be the person who cut that off at year 34." So it means the world to my boys. My boys lost in the finals, and I couldn't be more proud of them. It's really important to recognize the younger guys because they work just as hard. They just don't get as many accolades.
Russ is a great guy. You ever talk to him? He's so wise. It's awesome.
Yeah, Rusty was my JV coach,
Yep.
and he helped us win the championship. So yeah,
Pretty good.
Rusty's a great guy.
Yes, he is. So looking ahead to your regional bracket, you've got a pretty tough path. You got potential to see Beaver Creek, could see Jerome, could see Darby, could see Upper Arlington. Probably not all four, but any of those four you could see. And then we would expect you'd see Thomas again in the regional final. What are kind of your thoughts on how that tournament draw went? And what do you think your team needs to do to have a successful postseason run?
I talked to the boys about it. At the end of the day, if we want to get to the regional final, you got to be able to beat everyone. And we're not really concerned about who we're going to play, not because it's disrespecting any programs. It's just we can only control what we can control. And that's kind of what our season has been. I think a lot of my boys had huge expectations of like going undefeated and winning conference. And, we squeaked through it just through hard work. And, we have a great path. And it's great because we're going up against great teams. But in order to become great, you got to push people out of the limelight. And that's what the show is all about. I know I will say this. I kind of briefed Elliot on it, but last year I thought you guys did an excellent job. And I hope you do it again with your predictions on the brackets. I thought that was really cool. But last year you did have Upper Arlington beating us, and then you skipped a week. And I was like, we beat them in three. It was kind of a vanity thing, but it was also my
Shoot.
boys worked super hard. But that's just a fun tease. I'm excited. This is going to be a great, great run for my boys. And Ryan just got done with an interview on the Columbus Dispatch. And when your top guy is saying we could win a state championship, all steam ahead, man.
Yeah, I like him. He's a good guy. Well, this is the first. I know you told me you have some questions for us, so we're ready. Hit us.
Yeah, so I wrote out a lot of questions. I won't ask all of them,
Okay.
but Ellie, I'll go with you first. Kind of tell me what made you start Ohio Volley Talk or OVT?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a long story. So, way back when, I like, I like watching NFL. So I had this random NFL account and they like, they post like news or whatever. And they started a podcast and they're like, hey, if you want to be on the podcast, just DM us, you can come on. So I went on there and I ended up like just working with them for like a year, just talking about the NFL. I like it was cool, but I mean the NFL is just so saturated, like it was so small time, nobody knew anything. So I left that, but then, you know, getting into my senior year of high school playing volleyball. I was like, man, like this is so cool that we're winning. And so I started looking around more. I was like, okay, like who are the best teams in the state? Because at the time, like the GCL wasn't in my mind at all. So I started looking at like Yappy a lot more. I started searching up highlights, watching Mahir's broadcasts at St. X before we knew each other. And I was like I love this so much. Like I wish there was something like the podcast I did for football for high school volleyball. So I guess I kind of sat on that idea for a little bit. I mean, Lee Meyer's postseason run with Moeller was just so incredible. Five-set win against St. X, five-set win against Olentangy Liberty, five-set win against Beaver Creek, and then upset Elder in like a crazy state championship match. So I was like, man, I wish I could interview him about that. And he went on a couple like Moeller alumni podcasts or something like that. And they do a good job from like a bird's eye. Like if I was a Moeller alumni who played water polo or something, I had no idea about volleyball. It was a great interview, but I was listening to it and I was like, man, like I know for a volleyball specific thing, I could do that interview a little bit better. So that was the main piece. And then I was like, okay, well, I could do that, but I need at least one other person to do it. I can't do a podcast alone. And I was like trying to think. I was like, okay, my list is about number one, Mearson Hassan, number two, that's it. That's my whole list. Because I saw his Twitter account, and I mean, he just does so much stuff with sports media. He's so passionate about it, so willing to like just do random stuff for free for no attention just to get better as a sportscaster, like calling soccer games at freaking 3 a.m. or like calling intramural basketball games. I was like, that's the guy I got to have for it. So I reached out to him. He agreed to do it. And I reached out to a bunch of coaches. Lee agreed to do it. I was like, okay, like if we can nail this interview, I feel like we can go from there. And it just worked out. So it's been fun.
Awesome. So Mahir, what did it take for Elliot to convince you to become this dynamic duo you guys are?
I mean, it was not much overall. I think he sent me a DM and like different messages over social media and then email in the build up to that first season. I think he originally shot me that first message back in that October. So about 5 months before that 2023 season. And, I happily obliged to it. I love my time calling games at St. X, especially with the volleyball team. And I knew how much volleyball meant for the state of Ohio. And I said, why not? This is going to be a really good project. And at the time, too, I didn't really have much going on at Arizona State University. I was trying to find my feet in different clubs, different organizations, and trying to get some reps overall in broadcast and other ideas of sports media. So it was really helpful because it gave me some sort of platform so I can come on here, I can talk, and every single week I can tell my opinions, but also tell you guys what's going on in the volleyball world in the state of Ohio.
Elliot, I got a question for you.
Sure.
What is your favorite volleyball memory?
Favorite volleyball memory. There's a lot. Had a lot of good times, but one stands out. My junior year. Uh, I mean, Thomas Worthington prior to 2021 was not a volleyball program basically at all. Under the radar, didn't win anything. My junior year, that was when we kind of started to turn that around. Um, and Hilliard Darby obviously was a huge team. I mean, have been for decades in Central Ohio. So my first varsity action ever was against them in their gym. That we went down 0-2. I think we had four middles. The one guy was Bo. He was always playing. So lost the first set. Other middle went in. Lost the second set, and then I went in and we reverse swept them. And that was awesome. And then we beat them again the second time. And then we went at them first round in the playoffs, and then went 5 sets with them. We're down 13-5 in the fifth set. Came back and won. It was incredible.
That 13-5.
13-5. And it was that significance of like we were nobody and they were everything. And then we came and just flipped the script. It was awesome. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that Thomas Willington has done a complete 180 and it's been so impressive and I've been really proud of Brian. Obviously it takes a staff to do it and it's great to see. It's nice.
he's a great guy.
Yeah, it's all grassroots. It has to be. It starts with someone, and you have to just create a legacy. And that being said, I've watched almost all your guys' videos. I'm a really big fan, and I think a lot of the coaches would agree with this. How can we get you guys to commentate or broadcast the OHSA tournament? Because I think that would be, to your point, it's grassroots. I don't think there'd be anything better for the sport.
Actually, I emailed them last year. I had the same idea. They basically said, "All right, cool," and then like we'll let you know. And then it was the same people, so I assume that they're going to stick with them for a while. But I'd love to do that if the opportunity came around. So
Yeah, I mean the same thing for me. I think we'd make a good tandem that way. Again, I have a lot of play-by-play experience.
yeah, I was
Elder
going to say he's
is a
got to be
great
play
color
by
with.
play, but
This one might be a little controversial because this kind of happened when I was a player, and you guys probably do this too, but it's more out of like a analysis standpoint is how do you think boys volleyball and the level that it is played at compares to when you guys were in high school?
well, I graduated. We both graduated in 22, so probably not that different.
Yeah.
But I don't know. In a more general sense, like how does it compare to the past? I don't know. It's really tough for me. Like when I said last year that I thought, St. X versus Liberty in the semifinals was like the highest amount of talent we've ever seen in Ohio boys volleyball match. Took a lot of heat from that, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm lying. Lee Meyer sent me a text. He's like, I don't know. Have you seen like my team in 2007 that went undefeated? We won State Player of the Year. Yeah, maybe. And I'm not saying obviously I'm sure he's an incredible player, but I just feel like with the way club has grown, and again, I was 2 years old, so who knows? And there's no film, so there's no real way to check it. But I just can't imagine that far long ago, with how much club has developed, that it would be any kind of competition. That if you put that 2017, teleported them, and had them play St. X, that St. X team last year at the state tournament, I can't imagine that St. X team doesn't destroy them. But I guess I don't know. We just have to see. But I don't know.
So Mahir, I think Elliot kind of makes a good point. I know 2022 wasn't that long ago, but let's just say in the last decade, we could go from kind of what Lee was talking about in like the late 2000s. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, from the late 2000s, I think that's such an interesting time frame, especially for GCL. So like I
Yeah,
get
Kehoe's.
Lee's point because you have that against Stephen Kehoe with Saint X, Elder, again, a really good team in 2008. So there's a lot, and I think the idea of it is not just because of those teams. Yes, you have those teams. It's the fact that as you progress, you get things that are more interesting, right? I mean, even during the OHSBVA era, where, essentially that 3 seed versus 2 seed, if you will, in whatever was the South region in Division One, if it was, St. X against Elder, St. X against Moeller, Moeller against Elder, that was essentially like a state semifinal in ways. It felt like that because of, how big the South region was. But now all of a sudden, I mean, you take a look at this year in general, where we were really thinking about putting St. Ignatius towards the top. We were putting Thomas Worthington towards the top. This is the first time I think I've ever seen two teams from outside of that Cincinnati region or that Cincinnati area that have a legit chance of winning the state title. If you're just looking in these past 3 years, it shows that with this growth into OHSAA, there's a lot more equal opportunities for all the regions to potentially hoist a trophy, especially in Division One.
Just to clarify what I said a little bit too. There's a big difference between like relative dominance in that year and like just straight up skill level one-on-one, right? Like 1972 Dolphins went 17 and 0 or whatever, won the Super Bowl. They're the only team to ever go undefeated. But like if you brought them up against the worst team in the NFL now, like with modern concepts, modern nutrition, recovery, like the worst team probably wins right now. So from a talent perspective, that's a much different conversation than, straight up like how did they do against their 1972 teams. So Lee's 2007 team is probably one of, if not the best teams in Ohio history in terms of like relative dominance in 2007. But again, the straight up talent, I think it's tough to beat right now.
The volleyball bug, it once you get bit, it never goes away. So we just got to keep doing what we're doing. It's working. I think the demand's there. That's why I'm telling you guys that because I think it would be a really cool idea. I know my boys would be super hype. I told them I was coming on there, and they're like, "What? You're going on OVT? Oh my gosh, you should say do 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 do." And obviously, they didn't give any good ideas, but I was like. Yeah, it's cool. And I'm proud of you guys. It's super sweet. I'm really proud of you guys and what you guys are doing because It's nothing but good.
Really appreciate that, man. You're doing a great job with Davidson too, gearing up for a good postseason run. So thanks for coming on.
You're very welcome.
All right, that was Craig Lantz. Cool to get asked some questions. That was cool. All right, so getting into some of the matches this week. We had X take down Moeller in 3 sets to win the GCL outright. So that's pretty big. Again, like from what we thought at the start of the year. I mean, the turnaround from St. X has been pretty good. Elder took a tough loss there at the end to Moeller, which we'll get to, but Moeller did a good job, I think, fighting back. It was relatively close, but X, good enough team. They get it done for the third straight year in the row, taking home the GCL. We had the tri match with Elder and Beaver Creek. McNick swept their way through it. I mean, come on, man, that is crazy. They've swept Moeller and Elder this year. Their only loss on the season is to St. X, clear favorite in D2. I mean, at this point, it's can anyone compete with McNick?
Yeah, I mean, I have to completely agree with you there. I mean, we were talking about it earlier with Craig that the fact that we've had so many different teams that could be vying for that state championship, and yet here we stand on the missed of postseason, and once again, it is St. X in the number one spot, McNick in the number one spot in their respective divisions. And I think that's a testament to what both these programs have done this year in bringing in a lot of different key players and again returning a lot of players. In the case of Picnic, really only losing Bryce Dillard and then St. X on the other side. When you have a guy like Joe Taggart who's still on the outside and is only going to get better from now until when he leaves for college, it's only going to get better for your team. And we've seen that throughout the stretch again. And I think the biggest thing is McNick. I mean, I don't know if we've ever had a situation where a team has manhandled in ways a team from Division One multiple times during a year. And this is not like teams where, they're in the 8 seed, 9 seed, 10 seed pack. We tend to see that at times. It's not the case where we're seeing a team like Moeller, like Elder, who could be in the Region 4 final, and Beaver Creek, who could make a run themselves in Region 3. That is a testament to how good McNick has been. And I think the only team, in my honest opinion, from what we've seen, that could potentially compete, hypothetically speaking, it reminds me so much of that 2022 Baden team because they were the same way. They were just manhandling everybody in their path from a Division 2 perspective. And then Division 1, they were able to take it against some quality teams as well.
Even more so, though, I think this year. I mean, this is a pretty dang dominant Division two team. Like the Fenwick team in 2021, they won a lot, but they still lost to Elder. That Baden team, like they played some D1 competition, but it was the majority D2 and some lower D1 teams. But McNick, like if we release rankings right now, I think McNick is number two in the state. Like that's pretty insane to sweep number two and number three, Elder and Muller, in Division one. So that's pretty cool for them. I feel like Fenwick has a chance against them, but if they can make it through the region, I think there's no way they don't win state. But we will see, man. May is a crazy month. We also saw St. X go out of state, lost to Roncalli in Indiana in 4 sets. So a very good team over there in Indiana. I told someone like, I'm glad that wasn't their only loss. Like I'm glad they had one loss because imagine you're an undefeated state champion and your one loss is some random team in Indiana that you didn't have to go play. Like that would suck. So good thing that didn't happen. But also have the OCC Challenge. Now remember, this is the only time in high school volleyball you will ever see best of three with a third set to 15. I talked to an official once. Basically, it's because it's after regional seedings. They basically let them do what they want. Helps the night go by a little bit quicker. Berlin gets swept by New Albany, so that's pretty big for their region. And then Thomas Worthy got the win in three over Pick North. Now I will say, Pick North seemed like they kind of got in their head a lot. Like I don't know, you could kind of tell that they hadn't really played a lot of tough teams. Like they're not really used to losing. They haven't lost since March 29th against Berlin. I don't know. I think for a team that wants to win a state championship and is capable of making a deep run, like it's kind of a disservice to not have some more competition on the schedule. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean we've talked about that time and time again, where it comes down to competition. But you take a look at Pick North, you're playing a really good Thomas Worthing side, which is trying to peak at the right moment.
This is a pretty big one. Chillicothe sweeps Watterson. Have we just been undervaluing them? Because they're 18 and 2 on the year. Their two losses are early. I mean, they got swept bad by Watterson earlier in the year. They get lost in five to Hilliard Bradley. Outside of that, have not played anybody. So we didn't put them in our rankings because we don't value teams that don't play anybody, and they had bad loss to Watterson. So we figured, hey, just a team that didn't schedule very tough, but they swept Watterson recently. So that's I don't know, and they're in the same region, so that's actually huge for seedings, and that kind of throws off my perception of that region a lot.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, if you were to ask me, am I surprised by the result? I would say no. Just
Really?
because Chillicothe was in that position last year, right? We were talking about Chillicothe potentially being a two seed because they were able to get some wins against the likes of DeSales and against the likes of, some others like Bishop Hartley. It was the same this year. And really the only team that, I mean, we could subjectively put them up or put them below was St. Charles because they had a really good stronghold on that Region 5. I mean, and it's going to be the same this year, at least with St. Charles having that number one seed. But again, Chillicothe doing a pretty decent job. They got the three seed overall. They got a higher seed than Mount Vernon. Can you believe that? To
Yeah.
some extent, they've got a good seed. They're in a good position. And if they win that opening matchup, on May 13th against either Independence or Carroll, I mean, they're hosting a regional semi or regional quarterfinal matchup. That's pretty good overall. That brings in a lot of traction. It brings in a lot of publicity. And again, as we've talked about many times before, that's going to be in some ways their big game, their Super Bowl, and can they get it done in that stage, in that arena?
Taking a look at Region 1, as you mentioned, we got Pick North with one seed. We'll play the winner of Westerville Central and Delaware Hayes. And then we've got Big Walnut and Whetstone on their side of the bracket. And then playing in the regional semifinal, we've got winner of New Albany and Olentangy, which is a pretty interesting. Olentangy went right after New Albany, so that's cool to see. And then we had Westerville North and Reynoldsburg over here. And on the other side, we got Gahanna Lincoln versus Olentangy Orange, Pick Central versus Liberty. And we've got Berlin Newark, Westville South, and Licking Heights. So something I actually talked with Jim Cornette about for Berlin. We had Berlin over Gahanna Lincoln in our rankings. But Gahanna Lincoln gets two seed. That being said, just because they have the higher number next to their name, Liberty still chose to go after them. So I would say Berlin has an easier path to regional final. So again, like the seeding matters, but what more so matters is what are the coaches that the picks matter? What are the coaches of those teams that are right there? Who do they respect more? And Dave Hale literally respected Berlin a little bit more. Would rather play Gahanna Lincoln. Predict up through the 5-14 match. So first off, Westerville Central, Delaware Hayes. They don't have the best record. They're playing a tough conference, but Westerville Central is solid. I do think they will get it done, and I think Pick North will get it done over them. Um, Give me Big Walnut over Whetstone. This one will be interesting. New Albany, Olentangy, but given New Albany how they were playing against Berlin, the OCC Challenge, a sweep is pretty impressive. I like New Albany there to come out. That one really could go either way though. And then I like Westville North over Reynoldsburg. On the other side, I'd take Gahanna Lincoln over Orange, and then give me Liberty over Pick Central. And then I like Berlin over Newark and Licking Heights over Westerville South, which would technically be an upset, but I don't know. Licking Heights usually does pretty well. So yeah, that's what I have right now. Again, like based on what we've seen recently, it's really difficult for me to see anyone but Pick North coming out of here. I mean, we thought Berlin for a while, but Pick North is, I think they're peaking at the right time, honestly.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with you on that. I mean, looking at my own picks, I think Pick North would, I'd say they beat Westerville Central. I think they get it done on that May 12th match. That'll be on a Monday evening before the game's on Wednesday. I think Pick North, again, will be making their way to the regional quarterfinals. And then you have Whetstone and Big Walnut. You always see some interesting matchups down the stretch. I'm going to go Whetstone there. I think that's a team that, over time is that we're kind of in the 15 seed, 18 seed region over the past couple of years. It's nice to see that they've gotten better. So I think they get the win. And again, that big matchup is going to be New Albany against Olentangy. And I think that one is going to turn a lot of heads because you look at the other side with Reynoldsburg and Westerville North. I think Westerville North will get it done. So really the only toss-up on this side of the bracket is going to be Olentangy and New Albany. New Albany will be the host for that game. And again, you take a look at what the Eagles have done. I mean, the last match they played was against Licking Heights. It was a four-set win. This will be the first time they are playing Olentangy this season. And again, they've done relatively interesting. I mean, four-set loss to Olentangy Liberty, a three-set loss to Pick North. But I think you get a little bit of momentum with that Berlin win. I think you get a little bit of some energy going forward, right? And we've seen so many different six seeds make a run towards the semifinals. Give me New Albany over Olentangy in that one. So that's the top half of the bracket. Bottom half of the bracket for me, I still think Lincoln will take Olentangy Orange. I still think Olentangy Liberty will take Pick Central. I think Berlin will manhandle Newark. And then Licking Heights, Westerville South. Again, Licking Heights, another team that likes to go on the road and maybe get some wins as well. They like to, really stretch it at times. And once again, they're in that 8 seed, 9 seed range. We've seen that over the past couple of years as well. So Lincoln Heights will be an interesting team to look at. 8-5 this season for them. They got a couple of matches on Friday night against Worthington, Kilbourne, and Reynoldsburg before starting play for them. But, I think it should be an interesting match overall. They actually lost to Westerville South in five, Laking Heights, but I think they're able to get it done and move on to the next round.
All right, over in Region 2, we've got St. Ignatius playing East Lake North, and then they will play the winner of Avon and Euclid, or Avon, something like that. You got Strongville versus Max S. Hayes, Stowe Monroe Falls versus John Marshall. We've got Hudson versus Brunswick, Eds versus Shaker Heights, and then Mentor versus Medina, and then Jackson versus Cleveland Heights. Kind of interesting the way the seeding's worked out here. Jackson, Eds, I kind of expect to be on the same side. Hudson follows them. I honestly, I feel like Stowe might have been a little bit underseeded, but they go up and they will go after St. Ignatius' side of the bracket. So they'll be looking to play them at St. Ignatius before they get to a regional final at a neutral site. I like Ignatius over East Lake North. Give me Avon over Euclid. I'll take Strongsville moving on. I like Stowe moving on. I think Stowe and Ignatius will probably end up in that regional semifinal. I like Hudson over Brunswick. Give me Eds over Shaker Heights. I'll go Mentor over Medina, and then Jackson over Cleveland Heights, and then I don't know. Hudson could make some noise here in the regional quarterfinal versus St. Ed's, but my hunch is that we're going to see Jackson versus St. Ed's over here. So that should be a pretty interesting regional semifinal should we get there.
And I mean, you take a look at those potential regional semifinals. These are teams that played each other in the regular season, right? St. Ignatius and Stowe Monroe starting off the season. I had Stowe Monroe in the top 10, kind of fell out, especially with how they've done in region play. And you take a look at Hudson again, the 2023 Region 2 champions really showed out that year, put on a really good season, came into that state tournament unbeaten. And again, Larry Meehan and crew trying to get back to that point with a definitely a new squad overall. But looking at my Region 2 predictions, very similar to Elliott's. I still have St. Ignatius over East Lake North. Euclid, Avon. I'm going to take Euclid in that one. And then Strongsville over Hayes, Stowe over John Marshall. And then taking a look at the bottom half of the bracket again, Brunswick Hudson, kind of an interesting battle. That's a 5 seed against a 4 seed. But again, give me Hudson in that one just because you have different players that can really show out in these big moments, and you need them to really get up there and really show what they're capable of doing, especially down the stretch. I mean, you take a look at this Hudson team, they're going to be taking on, or rather, they actually lost to Brunswick earlier this year. That was on the road, a 5-set loss at Brunswick. This one will be at Hudson, so it will be an interesting battle that way, but I think the Explorers will get it done. Give me St. Ed's over Shaker Heights, Mentor over Medina, and then give me Jackson over Cleveland Heights.
Should be battle, man. A couple of these, close seeded matchups where they've lost in five or won in five earlier in the season. That's what playoffs are all about. Looking at Region 3, now this was an interesting bracket to kind of watch unfold. We see Thomas down here getting the bye, playing winner of Middletown Scioto, Kilburn and Bradley, and then Kettering Fairmont was having a good year against Dublin Kaufman. And then pretty much everyone went up here. So we had Upper Arlington as the 2 seed. Beaver Creek went there as the 3. Hilliard Davidson right there as the 4. And then we had Fairmont went down as the 5. Darby, which I would say was probably a little bit overseeded, went here as the 6. Jerome goes right after him, which in real time was a little bit surprising. But the more I look at this decision, the more I like it. This year is the first time in program history they ever go 2-0 against Darby. So Darby kind of having an off year, Jerome having a good year, and playoff Jerome is different. So I love it. The only thing is it's at Darby, so that'll be a pretty cool Vanguard matchup with both head coaches. But I like Upper Arlington over Northmont. I like Jerome pulling the technical upset, although I wouldn't call it an upset necessarily. I like them pulling the upset over Darby. I like Beaver Creek over Wayne, and then Davidson over Centerville. So yeah, I think those are all pretty cool matchups. And then I mean those four, I think all have a decent shot of coming out and playing in a regional final. So that'll be pretty competitive. That'll be cool to see. On the other side, give me Scioto to upset Middletown. I like Kilbourne over Bradley, and then I like Fairmont over Kaufman.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with you there. I think going back towards that Jerome Darby matchup, again, we've seen Jerome really show out in the playoffs before. And again, Jerome did a really good job against Darby. And you take a look at that match at the Panthers' place, the Celtics were able to take that match 25-18, 16-25, 25-15, 20-25, but then take the fifth set 15-9, right? They're able to really win the marathon and push through. That's a gutsy play by the Celtics, but I think they get it done over Darby. They'll take on Upper Arlington, in my opinion, in that regional quarterfinal matchups. Again, going down the bracket, I still think Beaver Creek will take Wayne in a nice G-Walk battle. And I think Davidson will get it done against Centerville. We're going to go in favor of Craig's crew this time as they'll advance to the regional quarterfinals. On the bottom side of the bracket, I agree with you. I think Scioto will just beat Middletown. That will be an interesting battle down the stretch. Again, Middletown in the GMC, much to the likes of Lakota East, Sycamore, Lakota West, some of these teams that will be in Region 4, but Middletown a little bit higher, so they're going to be in this greater Dayton, greater Columbus area, but Dublin Scioto going to be making more than an hour and a half road trip for that game. I think they get it done. Kilbourne, I think, in my opinion, will beat Bradley, and Fairmont will beat Kaufman.
So one thing I don't like about how the OHSA realigned regions, like I don't know how in like a playoff match like this, like teams are driving an hour and a half to play playoff matches. Like it doesn't really make sense to me. But oh well. I mean, I think in terms of having more competitive teams at state, I guess it makes a little bit more sense. But I don't know. Unfortunate how it worked out. And finally, Region 4. Got San X versus Hamilton, Oak Hills versus Fairfield, Milford versus Sycamore. That's an interesting one. We'll talk about that. Lakota East versus Lakota West. That's another good one. Elder versus Kings. Matt McLaughlin getting kind of a revenge game on Elder a little bit. It's his first year coaching at Kings. He was an assistant at Elder, head coach at LaSalle, and before that, head coach at Moeller. So he's well versed in the GCL. He's get a chance to play one of them in his first year at Kings. Mason versus Lebanon, Walnut Hills versus Princeton, and then West Claremont versus Moeller. So a little interesting here. Elder gets the 2 seat over Moeller. Again, you would agree with that. You know, just for me, the Moeller head-to-head win that they had right before the Elite Eight, that's got to play in a little bit more for me. But I don't hate it. It just means that if Elder and Moeller both get to that regional semifinal, it's at the pit, which I think makes a pretty big difference. That kind of tips the scales a little bit more towards that Elder team. But Muller's been hot recently, so we'll see how that one goes. In terms of predictions, I like X over Hamilton. Give me Oak Hills over Fairfield. This one, Milford and Sycamore both having good years. We just talked about Sycamore playing X. Milford, in the ECC, usually dominated by Walnut Hills. Milford's coming out. They won it this year outright. But I like Milford over Sycamore in a battle. Lakota East versus Lakota West, that's pretty cool. Rivals going out in the first round of the playoffs. I like Lakota East to come out of there. Give me Elder over Kings. I'll take Mason over Lebanon. I like Walnut Hills over Princeton, and then Moeller over West Claremont.
I think it's going to be an interesting battle, especially down the stretch. Again, top half of the bracket for me, I think St. X will beat Hamilton. Fairfield Oak Hills will definitely be interesting. Again, Oak Hills, a side that really took it to a lot of Division two teams this year, especially Taylor. And you can, kind of look down the stretch of what Oak Hills has done this year. And, especially in that region, you have a lot of these Division one sides schedule some Division two competition really to test the waters, maybe go for a challenge in ways. And boy, did Oak Hills do that. They beat Taylor this year. They were able to take Chaminade Julienne as well and Baden. So they've done a really good job against some Division two competition. I think Oak Hills gets it done. Going down the bracket against Sycamore Milford, especially with how Sycamore played today against St. X, that's going to be a marathon in my opinion. I won't be surprised if that goes, 4 sets or 5 sets, just with how both teams are playing. But give me the ECC champs, Milford, to advance there. And then looking down the stretch, I think East gets it done against West. Good battle for Lakota, though. I mean, we've seen that at times in GMC competition. Nice to see that in the playoffs. And then the bottom half of the bracket, I think it has to go back to what we said earlier. Elder is going to be that number 2 seed over Moeller. However, we have seen Elder lose some playoff games at home, most notably in 2023 against Walnut Hills. Panthers were a 4 seed that year, the Eagles were a 6 seed. So it could be relatively interesting should we get a Moeller versus Elder semifinal at the pit. I think it could be a toss-up either way because I think Moeller has been a relatively better team as of late, but Elder does get that head-to-head advantage. Either way, in the first round, I think the Panthers will get Kings, and then they will take on Mason in the second round, in my opinion, as the Comets will handle Lebanon. And then down at the bottom, I think Walnut Hills will take down Princeton. Princeton, too, again, this is a team that's been in that 12 seed spot before, even in the OHS BVA era. So they kind of reprise their role in ways, but Walnut Hills will get it done. And then we'll see a rematch of the game on Thursday night. Walnut Hills taking on Moeller. This one will be at the Brisbane Family Center on Friday night as the Crusaders would take down West Claremont.
One more note. I mean, it would be pretty cool if it goes how we think it's going to go, and it's Thomas Worthington, Pick North, St. X, and St. Ignatius, and obviously that a lot. It's a big if right there, but would that happen? I think that's all four regional player of the years that would be playing at the state tournament, which I think it's been a long time since that's happened, and especially since we're down to four teams at state now. That'd be pretty cool to see. Taking a look in Division Two, we've got Region Five. This is Columbus. So we got St. Charles as our one seed. They'll play the winner of Patriot Preparatory and Belmont. Give me Belmont's coming out of there, and then St. Charles to advance over them. Yeah, I like Briggs beating Walnut Ridge and West to play St. Charles in the regional quarterfinal. Looking down, we've got Worthington Christian taking on Bishop Hartley. I like Hartley to come out of there. We've got Lyndon McKinley playing DeSales. Give me DeSales coming out of there to get a CCL matchup in the regional quarterfinal against Hartley. On the other side of the bracket, we've got Waterston playing Westfall. Give me Waterston to advance. We've got Unioto playing Northland. I'll take Unioto out of there. And then we've got Chillicothe playing the winner of Independence, not Independence that goes to state, Independence in Columbus. Independence and Carroll. Give me Carroll beating Independence, and then I like Chillicothe taking down Carroll. And then we've got Eastmore Academy and Tree of Life Christian. I'll take Tree of Life Christian and then Mount Vernon beating them. So it'll be Mount Vernon and Chillicothe in that regional quarterfinal. So a lot of competition in this region. Mount Vernon Chillicothe is a lot more interesting now. And that's seeing that, before their win over Waterston, I would have just told you it's BS, inflated records, but now it's got some weight to it. So I'll be really interested to see that, and that'll be at Chillicothe. If it was at Mount Vernon, with the different court texture, maybe that affects it a lot more. So that'll be a cool one to see. And then we got Waterston playing Unioto, so it should be too much competition there. But then DeSales and Bartley, and then St. Charles and Briggs, if my predictions are correct. So a lot of action in Region 5. That should be pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think I think that Belmont's going to get it done over Patriot Prep on Monday. I think Briggs gets it done over Walnut Ridge, and I think Briggs again. We brought in Herb Scharfenaker just last week, so we got a little insight about Briggs and the inner workings there. Again, an 11-9 season, 8-0 in conference play. They were able to take care of Bishop Hartley last Wednesday. They were able to sweep them on the road too, 3-0. Interesting game down the stretch. 25-20, 26-24, 25-22 was the final score for that one. So Briggs, in my opinion, will take down Walnut Ridge. I also think they take down West, and that will set up an interesting battle with, in my opinion, St. Charles after they beat Belmont on a Tuesday. And then that Thursday battle, Briggs against St. Charles. Again, the Cardinals really look poised for another run to state. I still think they get it done. They're on to the second week. And then taking a look at some of these other battles going on, I think Hartley will take down Worthington Christensen. DeSales will beat Lyndon McKinley. And then Waterston takes down Westfall. Northland, Unioto, close game unto itself. Again, we've talked about some of the Chillicothe teams. Chillicothe proper also taken down Unioto earlier this year. So it's going to be interesting. Give me the upset, though. Give me Northland to advance in that one. And then taking a look at the bottom quadrant of this bracket, I think Carroll takes down Columbus Independence. Tree of Life Christian takes down Eastmore Academy. But I also think the favorites get it done. It will be Mount Vernon against Chillicothe for that Thursday night battle. Again, a toss-up unto itself. But if I were to decide right now, I'm going to say Mount Vernon just because of the competition they've played. Some other regional quarterfinal matchups down the stretch. I think Waterston will take down Northland. And then you have Hartley against DeSales. Again, DeSales has gotten it done against Hartley countless times. I think this one will be no different. So, in my opinion, going into the regional semifinals, it would be DeSales against St. Charles, and it would be Mount Vernon against Bishop Waterston.
Yeah, actually, I didn't even realize 5:15. That's this Thursday. So yeah, but yeah, I completely agree. I think Mount Vernon gets it done over Chillicothe. And yeah, I agree with all your semifinal picks. This region, I think, maybe the most parity. Maybe this one in Region 3, maybe. Yeah, just cool to see. A lot of teams that have a legit shot at coming out. So Region 6, maybe a little bit less parity. I think I actually got to see Firestone play recently. I think it's got to be St. Vincent St. Mary and Firestone to be playing in this regional final. Regardless, as for what we're going to see this week, give me Carrollton over Howland, and then I like St. Vincent St. Mary to go on to the or to the semifinals. Excuse me. I like Roosevelt over North to play them in the semifinals, and then let's go Cuyahoga Falls over Amherst Steel to play Firestone, and then I like Firestone going on to the semifinal. And then give me Springfield over Hoban. And then Walsh Jesuit over Springfield. So Walsh Jesuit Firestone should be a little bit interesting, but um, Firestone just is such an athletic team. It was cool to see. They got a lot of size and a lot of power. Maybe not as much coordination at times, but they're a powerful team. So that should be a good matchup. And if they get to play St. Mary, that should be a cool regional final to see.
For sure. And looking at my top half of that bracket, Howland Carrollton should be interesting, but I'm going to take Carrollton in that one before Carrollton loses to the Irish of St. Vincent St. Mary. So they'll be on to that second week. I also think Kent Roosevelt will take down Akron North. Taking a look at my bottom half of the bracket against Steel Cuyahoga Falls, that 7-6 battle, but I think Cuyahoga Falls will get it done. Should be interesting though, knowing the other 7-6 battles we have, especially in Division One, and then Hoban Springfield again. Hoban for the past couple of years has kind of been the second in line, if you will, to a team like St. Vincent St. Mary in this region. This year, it just hasn't been the case. 0-16 overall. They've really struggled in their competition to try to get those wins. So I think Springfield will take down Hoban there. But I also think that Walsh Jesuit would get it done. So then again, it comes down to that, do we have a Firestone team that just dropped down from Division One, was actually in one of the regional finals for the Northeast region in 2022 at the Division One level before losing to St. Ignatius. Could they potentially jump to the regional final in Division Two and would set up a really interesting matchup, in my opinion, with potentially St. Vincent St. Mary?
Taking a look at Region 7, give me Nordonia over St. Martin de Port. Take Rhodes and Bedford. I guess I'll take Bedford going on to play Nordonia, and then I'll take Nordonia to move on to the regional semifinals. You got Chardon playing East Technical, Lincoln West versus Bard Early College. I like Bard Early College and Chardon moving on. And actually, give me Chardon pulling the upset over Bard Early College and Chardon playing against Nordonia in that semifinal. On the other side, we've got Berkshire playing against Brexville Broadview Heights, Independence and Garfield Heights, and then Villa Angela St. Joseph against Glenville. And finally, NDCL versus Mayfield. Um, Again, this is just a bracket where the seedings are, I don't know, just with the competition everyone's playing. I feel like a team like Brexville Broadview is really underrated as a 7 seed. So I actually would take them moving on over Berkshire. We'll see, but obviously they were very successful last year. Lost a lot, lost their head coach, but moved down to Division Two. I think they have a chance to go far in this bracket. I like Independence pulling the upset over Garfield Heights. We know they turn on for the playoffs, so I like them going on. And then give me Brexville Broadview to go up and play in the regional semifinal. On the other side, I'll take Villa Angela St. Joseph over Glenville, and then I will take Mayfield over NDCL, and then give me Mayfield over Villa Angela St. Joseph to go to the semifinal.
You take a look at this region, Elliot. This region basically had a glow up over the offseason. I mean, this region used to have 7 to 8 teams. I believe it was seven last year. It was very limited. And again, you had that team Independence making it to the state tournament in both years, ever since OHSA took over. All of a sudden, this looks like an entirely different game. You have so many teams in terms of teams dropping from Division One to Division Two, some teams reclassifying towards this region to get better competition. It's very interesting to see these teams. This is always the region in our eyes that tends to have the most amount of parity. But nonetheless, I still think number one seed Nordonia gets it done over St. Martin de Port in the first round. And I think they would actually take on Bedford overall if I'm just looking at the seedings, looking at the projections right now. But I also think Nordonia would be on to the second week overall. I don't think they'd be upset. Looking down the bracket, I think Chardon would take down East Technical. I think Bard takes down Lincoln West, but I agree with you. I think Chardon, again, in the usual 7 to 8 team brackets we've seen in the past, they've been that team that has made it to the final. And again, I think Chardon has showed that they belong in this region and they belong as one of the best team in this region. So I think they do get that win over Bard Early College. Looking down the bracket, though, this is when it gets really interesting. And I think that quadrant over there, when you have Garfield Heights, Independence, Brecksville Broadview, and Berkshire, crazy as is, because obviously when we talked about it, we said Brecksville Broadview should be the number one seed overall. But then we also talked about, well, let's take a look at region matchups and let's take a look at competitions, right? So, I mean, in terms of our rankings, yes, Brecksville Broadview might be the best team to come out of this region. Now they've got to prove it. And again, they have to go on the road to prove it on that Tuesday evening against Berkshire. But I think the best teams can and will win on the road. So I think Brecksville Broadview will get it done down the stretch. And I think they will take that matchup. And again, you take a look at Brecksville Broadview going on the road. The same could be said with Independence as well, going to Garfield Heights. And this is the reigning champs, and we talk about it all the time. Heavy is the head that holds the crown, and it's definitely the case for Independence this year, coming in as a 10 seed. But I also think this is the playoffs, right? This is anything can happen, but you also know what teams and can show up at the right moment. So I think Independence will get it done. Looking at the other quadrant, if you will, the quartet, you have NDCL and another team that's been flirting with some of those top spots in the past against Mayfield. I think Mayfield would get the win. I think VASJ would beat Glenville. And then you have your quarterfinals. I mean, you know the saying, you come for the king, you better not miss. And that's the case for Brecksville Broadview against a team like Independence, who has held this throne overall. Brecksville Broadview 5-12 on the year, but they've been able to get some competition. Did not play Independence this year, although Independence has gotten some competition against Division One and Division Two play in the past. So it will be interesting to see what happens. When they met last year, Brecksville Broadview was able to sweep Independence, but that was with a team that was led with a bunch of seniors. And again, they had Phil Margevicius, an entirely different team. But give me Brecksville Broadview to beat Independence in that matchup. And then VASJ against Mayfield. Again, we've seen this VASJ team be the number one seed. They've kind of fallen before. I think things change overall, and I think they get to the regional semifinals. So at the top of the bracket, I would have Nordonia making it, and they would host the six-seeded Chardon. And then in the bottom, I would have Brecksville Broadview, the seven seed, taking on Villa Angela St. Joseph.
And final bracket, Region 8. We've got Taylor playing Turpin and then Anderson playing Edgewood. Wow, so this is an interesting bracket setup we get here. A lot of buys. We got a double playing over here. Interesting. I wonder why wonder why there's a play in instead of like a buy and a play in and then a buy and a play in, but that's interesting. Okay, so we got I'd like Taylor over Turpin. Give me Anderson over Edgewood. Oh, that might one might be competitive. And I like Taylor over Anderson to go to the quarterfinal. Over here we've got Stivers School for the Arts against Chaminade Julienne. I like Chaminade Julienne coming out of there, and this one should be a battle, but I like Chaminade Julienne pulling the upset over Taylor to go to the semifinals. Then we've got Mount Healthy playing the winner of LaSalle and Middletown Christian. I'll take LaSalle getting the win over here, and then also over Middletown Healthy to get to the quarterfinals. Then we've got McNick playing winner of Marshall and Meadowdale. Give me Marshall winning. We'll take McNick over Marshall and then McNick over LaSalle to get to that regional semifinal. So really not a whole lot for McNick on this side. Shamna Julian is who I would expect that they have to play in the semifinal. But yeah, I mean, not a whole lot of competition. Seems like everyone went away from them. Looking at this other side of the bracket, we've got Baden versus Roger Bacon. That should be a great first matchup right there. It's like with all these matchups over here and all these like so many teams. We get 20 teams and we get the 5 and the 6 point each other. That's pretty cool. I don't know. That one will be interesting. Give me Baden come out of that one, but again, that should be a battle. I know we got the 19 seed Dunbar has a bye. Interesting. I guess I'll take Baden over them as well. And we've got Indian Hill over Wyoming, and then Fenwick over Indian Hill, and then give me Fenwick over Baden. Again, I think if there's anyone who could take down McNick, it's going to be Fenwick in that regional final, should they both get there. And then on this other side, we've got Alter playing David H. Ponitz. I'll take Alter. And then Loveland's having a good year. I'll take them over Trotwood Matterson. Give me Loveland over Alter. And then I've got Loveland playing McNick in the regional semifinal up here. And then, I'm sorry. Loveland playing Fenwick in the regional semi down here, and then McNick versus Shamrock Julian in the regional semifinal up here.
It's a very interesting bracket. You have so many teams getting buys, and again, some very, very interesting matchups in of the first round. Essentially, the play-in bracket. Again, you can take a look at Edgewood Anderson in the top, and then, of course, there's the big one, Roger Bacon against Baden. 2 years ago, that sixth seed versus fifth seed match was a final. One of those teams is going to be eliminated in the first round. That's just overall crazy. A lot of teams are really trying to pack a punch early in this tournament. But taking a look at the top of the bracket, I'm going to have Taylor beating Turpin and then Anderson beating Edgewood. Anderson, one of those teams to drop towards Division Two this year. I think they get it done. Would be an interesting battle down the stretch, but I think Taylor would beat Anderson in that game on Tuesday evening. I think CJ would get it done against Stivers School of the Arts, and then CJ would take down Taylor in that matchup in Cleves. Working our way down the bracket, Middletown Christian against LaSalle. Again, LaSalle has not been the LaSalle we've seen in years prior. Again, one of the teams that was one of the best, if you will, in Division Two, especially right after COVID. Again, haven't been that team, even with dropping down from Division One, 4-17 this year. They've definitely had to prove themselves, taking on West Claremont for their final match on Thursday night, last Thursday night, if you will. But I think the Lancers get it done. They take on Mount Healthy, which should be interesting, but I still think the Lancers will get that victory on Tuesday evening. You have Meadowdale against Thurgood Marshall. Give me Meadowdale to pull the upset there as a 20 seed over the 17 seed, but I think their dreams will come to an end against the top seeded McNicholas, and then give me McNick to take down LaSalle. And then on the other side of the bracket, Roger Bacon Baden. That's such a very, very close game down the stretch. Again, two teams that know each other very well, as is the case with a lot of these top teams in Region 8. But Roger Bacon was able to take a victory against the Rams earlier this year in their 12-9 campaign in this regular season. The game was played at Roger Bacon. The Spartans won in four, 22-25, 25-19, 25-12, 26-24. So it should be interesting, but I think Roger Bacon gets it done on the road, and they'll also take down Dunbar as well on Tuesday evening. Wyoming Indian Hill should be another interesting battle. Again, two teams that relatively know each other as well. They share a lot of conferences in other sports in the Cincinnati area, but give me Indian Hill to advance before they lose to Fenwick. So it would be an interesting battle between Roger Bacon and Fenwick, but I think the Falcons beat the Spartans in that one and advance to the second week. And in the final quartet, I have Alter defeating Ponitz, Loveland defeating Trotwood Madison, and then the ultimate question at hand. And again, we've talked about it before with this Alter side is can they go down the stretch? They had that big 5-set win against Fenwick to start the season. They were relatively speaking in our top five for a long time, ended out the season 11-9. And you take a look at that back half where they lost to Baden, lost to McNick, lost to CJ, and they also lost to Elder as well in Division One, a team that hasn't had a lot of confidence recently, and I think it might show early in the playoffs. Give me Loveland to advance to the regional semifinals. So my regional semifinals in Region 8 would be the 8th-seeded Chaminade Julienne against the top-seeded McNick in the top, and then in the bottom would be the third-seeded Loveland taking on the second-seeded Fenwick.
Yeah, I mean, that should say something about how much freaking respect McNick has, that the best team in the top is eight, right? Like it's everyone went away from them. Um, and I do believe Indian Hill, Wyoming are in the CHL this year. I think that's the inaugural year. So they are in the same league in volleyball too. All right, that'll do it for this week of Ohio Volley Talk. Mahir, any final thoughts?
No, but I mean, this has been a great regular season, a lot of action over these past few weeks. Now it happens for real. So good luck to all the teams in the playoffs. We'll be keeping an eye on it. Again, we'll be giving some updates down these few weeks. Again, very, very interesting matchups, especially early on, especially in the Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus area. So if you're in those areas, make sure to tune in, make sure to get out and support all of these teams because, as always, it is a very important stretch and we don't know what's going to happen in the month of May.
A lot of important action early this year, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I think Darby Jerome, that's something that's pretty close to me. I might try to go to that. That should be fun. Anyways, that's been Ohio Volley Talk, and we will catch you next week.